We are going to install a lift on our Cayenne Turbo S today. This is Husman Bros, and I'm Justin.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we are here in a secret location. I'm wearing my work pants.
That's right, we are in the Cayenne Whisperer's secret laboratory where we are going to install the rear lift on our Cayenne Turbo S. We're building this truck so we can put it up on Bring a Trailer.
So follow the journey with us, but let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so if we're going to do a job, we're going to need the hardware, and here we have it. We've got our Eurowise 3-inch air suspension lift kit. So we've got our in-frame spacers here. We have our subframe spacers. And to cap it all off, we have our exhaust spacers. So it may only be 3 small packages, but it's going to be about 2 hours worth of work. So let's get started.
Cousin Rob, it's great to have you back on the channel.
Great, I'm glad to be back.
Great. So I see you've got your breaker bar in hand. Do we have to take the wheels off to do this job?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We need access to all the suspension components. So I like to start off and just kind of loosen the wheels, and then I finish it off with my impact wrench. But you know, one of the things you may ask is, hey Rob, I see you take off the rear wheels and the front wheels. Why are you doing that? Well, you know, when the wheels are just dangling, that's unsprung weight. And also think about it, it's air suspension, and so it's actually pressuring the air suspension by just having that wheel dangling. So if you're going to work for any extended length under the car, just go ahead and take the wheels off.
We'll get started on that now.
Great.
I'm gonna hop inside. We have to do one thing before we lift this up in the air. Let's show you what we have to do.
Now, what we want to do is we have to turn off the suspension system.
Because this is an air suspension
correct.
system versus the other ones we've worked with.
Which is steel.
Right.
Take that rocker,
Okay.
which is the air suspension height setting,
Okay.
and roll it forward all the way and hold it.
Okay.
Perfect. That's it. That's all you do.
That's it. So what happens if we lift it with the suspension on?
Depending upon circumstances, the suspension could say, oh, I need to add air, or I need to do something, I need to lower. And so what we're doing is we're turning it off, we're making that decision, right?
Could do damage if we lift
That's
it with
correct.
it on.
Yes, that's
so
correct.
First step for anything when you're working with these cars
Critical.
and taking
First
them
step.
off the ground is turn off that air suspension.
That's correct, yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Let's go on to the next spot.
Great. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so we brought it up and then brought it down, not very high.
Right.
Why are we doing this?
Well, here's a pro tip. When you're going to take the wheels off, wheels are heavy. So let's keep them close to the ground. So
Makes sense.
we went to the first detentor, the first lock, we rested it on the lock support. Now we're going to go ahead and take the wheels off.
Okay, excellent, let's do that. So I did my part of the job and I lifted up the truck, and now it's your part of the job to take those heavy ass wheels off.
That was like really easy. You didn't lift anything, man. You pushed a button.
I lifted an entire truck. Go take care of the wheels.
Fine.
Why is that?
Oh, they just locked into that carrier hub a little bit more.
So while they're doing the hard work over there, I'm going to tell you a little bit about these wheels that we're taking off. So these are, I think, Techno Sport wheels. They could be Sport Techno. I'm not entirely sure. These are pretty rare wheels to come on a Cayenne. Only available on the Turbo S. Really cool that we have them. Kind of sad that we're replacing them, but they're neat wheels. Just wanted to talk about them a little bit, point out exactly what they are. You eagle-eyed Porsche files will know exactly what they are.
We're going to crush them?
We're not going to crush them. Okay, Rob, so I know we have frame spacers, right?
Right.
And then
Subframe drop.
subframe drop. Okay, so where are we putting these things? What are we doing? Are we pulling the whole back end out?
That's the great news. We don't have to.
Okay.
It's going to take a little bit of leverage. So,
right.
you know, I have three rules about working on cars: torque, tools, and light.
Okay, fair.
This is torque.
All right, okay, so where are we putting these things?
Right.
This one first.
This one first. We're gonna
Okay.
remove these 2 bolts.
Okay.
Then we're gonna use the mother of all pry bars to open up a space. We're gonna put in a block of wood to hold it. Then we're gonna feed these 2 spacers in to match these 2 holes.
Okay, and are we doing one side at a time?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
yes.
excellent.
And so we're gonna remove these bolts here and here.
Okay.
We're gonna remove these bolts. We're gonna put a prop under this. We're gonna put a jack stand under this.
Okay.
Well, a support stand. We're gonna then lower it down enough to be able to feed these in.
Okay,
So
excellent.
it's actually super easy. And technically one person could do it, but really it helps to have another hand just to stick things
Sure.
and hold things kind of still so things don't move around.
Excellent.
So it's important to have the right tools. You need sophisticated tools to work on such a vehicle like this. So we've got our sophisticated tool here. And another sophisticated tool, we're gonna do some prying
That's
and
right.
then some blocking.
That's right. So what we're gonna do is we wanna start with this here. Let's see.
All right, Rob, so why do we have a wood block in here?
Yeah, I know, this is a really advanced technical tool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we need some space so that we can wedge the spacers in. So what we do is we kind of start working with some pry bars. We used a couple of different ones. We used the big one, but we couldn't get a real good, what's called purchase on it. So
What it really took was teamwork.
it did take teamwork.
Yeah.
So once again, this is one of those things where it helps if you have another pair of hands, just to do certain things like holding a pry bar in just a particular spot for a second.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue to pry it up a little bit more. We're going to leave that wood block in there because that's our safety. And then we're going to pry it up a little bit more until we can wedge one of the spacers in.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, that was pretty easy for me.
Yeah, imagine.
You seem worse to wear for it though, so it looks beautiful, looks great. What
yeah.
were the surprises on this part?
So we did things a little different.
Okay.
With a steel spring, it probably would have been easier with a steel spring, but because I rebuilt on the first time we did this,
Right.
because I rebuilt the steel springs, I had to remove the strut anyway.
Okay.
Now, we kept the strut in. So what we did is we actually bent the whole, that whole carrier for the strut with the strut and all the suspension components connected. So there's a little bit of torquing going on there. And
Okay.
we ended up using...
Yeah, I saw you guys were using a
Yeah,
giant.
yeah. We ended up finishing up with a very large pry bar. So,
Okay.
but it completely gave us the torque that we needed just because it's so damn big.
We did this side.
Yes.
Will this help us do the other side quicker, do you think?
I think it'll be about the same. It's
Okay.
once again, it's finding...
It's all just brute force
It's
with
brute
this.
force, and it's finding that place where you can get a purchase.
And so when I was watching you guys, and I'm not lazy, there were just too many heads in the soup here. But I was watching you, I think one of the biggest challenges that I saw was getting these lined up so that you could get that bolt in there.
Right.
Right? So again, I think this is where that lift really comes in handy for this job.
It does, because if you're down low on the ground, you really have to get underneath it completely
Right.
to be able to look and eyeball if all the holes line up.
Right.
We're lucky. We could sit on the ground or sit on a stool and look up in there. The one thing is, and I'll mention this, is that on this forward spacer here, we ran into a little bit of a sight issue just because the strut's there.
Okay.
I mean, we were able to get around it, but
Right.
just know that it is a bit of an issue to get that sight.
Right. So it's a little bit of a witchy thing to get in there,
right,
for sure.
And we used a combination of a large mallet just to really properly position them in, and then we used a finer a
precision
hammer.
mallet.
Yeah, really a precision hammer with a rubber tip, so that it didn't mark up the spacer.
Perfect, excellent. So subframe is next, right?
The other side, and then we'll
Oh, so we're gonna do both of these
Yeah,
at
both of
once,
these,
and
that's
then,
right.
so we're gonna do each one of the different spacers
Yes,
all together.
that's correct, yes.
Okay, fantastic.
All right.
Let's go to the other side and get started.
Great.
There we go. Okay, so earlier in this video I showed you the subframe spacers, but these are not actually the subframe spacers for the rear. These are for the front. So we're not gonna put these on. We are gonna put these subframe spacers on the rear. And we're doing that right now.
This is a 3-ton jack stand, so it's going to hold up the subframe. I mean, really, the subframe, we're probably talking 600-700 pounds, right?
Right.
So we want to make sure it's stable. So we've got a couple of hockey pucks, which can take some weight,
Right.
and a piece of wood. Now, keep in mind, we're only going to have it down for literally just a few moments while
Right.
while we insert the new spacers.
Okay.
So, and then just before we start this, we're going to go ahead and loosen the supports for the exhaust,
Right.
just so they get them out of the way. The exhaust is actually going to hang free, totally
Okay.
cool, because it's a long piece of metal, not a lot of weight at the end, so there's really going to be no pressure on it.
Okay, excellent. Let's get started.
Great.
First thing Rob's going to do is loosen the exhaust bolt so that when we drop the subframe, the exhaust can come with it. It's a 13mm bolt that you're looking for.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put those spacers in the exhaust so that the exhaust doesn't bounce off the subframe. This is going to be hard to see because it's kind of up in an area. We're going to add these subframe spacers up into these brackets right here, and this will give us clearance that matches what we did for the subframe. That allows the exhaust to clear the subframes, so that way they don't come into contact with each other.
So that's pretty much it. We did the subframe spacers, the frame spacers, and then the exhaust spacers, and that's the rear lift. So Rob, what did you learn from this one? It's a little different than one we've done before.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the last time I removed the struts, because I had to rebuild them anyway, that really added a lot of complexity because you had to take out some of the main bolts that align the suspension, and putting them back in and aligning them after putting the subframe spacer and the frame spacer, it was tough.
Right.
I mean, it took a lot of prying. Now, that's not to say that we had to do a lot of prying here, but to me, it was so much easier. I'd say it's about an hour aside, really, by the time you kind of figure out where all your angles are to do the proper, forcing with our pry bars.
Right, so now that we're wrapping it up, anything that you want the person who's watching the video all the way through before they start, be sure to do that, kids, to remember before they start.
Safety first. Always make sure that you've got the vehicle up on jack stands. I think it's a tough job on jack stands.
I'd have to agree.
Because there's a lot of angles and stuff, and especially if you're having to put some torque on things, you don't have a lot of options. Lift is better, of course, but once again, also make sure that it's safely lifted.
Right.
It helps to have two people. At the end of the day,
sometimes three.
Yeah, sometimes three. At the end of the day, when this metal plate is really tight, and because we did not remove any of the suspension pieces, it was tighter.
Right.
But through perseverance, torque, strength, and the right amount of tools and patience, and well, maybe the right angle or two, we were able to get it all in.
Excellent.
Yeah, I really thought that side came together easier, even though we had a tighter spot that we had to try and angle than the driver's side did. I think it's going to be different on any Cayenne out there. But at least
Every
you got to see what
project
it
has
looks
its
like.
own problems.
Exactly. So if you learned something about your build you're going to do, if you have any questions about anything we've done in this video, please leave them in the comments below. We'll certainly reply to those. If we need to make a special video about something in particular, we can come back and do that too.
You bet. Thanks for watching and subscribe.